I never thought I'd feel this way, like I'm treading water in a storm that just won't end. But here I am, a few years into adulthood, and the reality of financial pressure has become the backdrop to everything. It's this constant, quiet weight that settles on my chest every morning when I check my bank account, every time I decide what to eat, every time I say no to plans I want to say yes to. It's like being trapped in a system designed to keep me just barely afloat, while expenses spiral faster than my paycheck can chase. It started slowly. Fresh out of college, full of hope and energy, I landed a job that felt like a step forward. Not a dream job by any means, but it paid the bills, or so I thought. At first, I didn't feel the pinch. Rent was manageable, I could still grab coffee with friends without overthinking it, and weekends meant some small joys. But then the bills crept up. Rent went up. Utilities, groceries, phone plans, all these things I once barely noticed began to chip away at my paycheck. And my salary? It stayed almost the same. A tiny raise here and there, but nowhere near enough to cover the rising costs. Now, every decision feels like a calculation with no margin for error. When I walk into the grocery store, I don't just think about what I want to eat, I'm scanning prices, comparing brands, counting how many meals I can stretch from one trip. The thrill of choice has been replaced by the grind of necessity. Buying fresh vegetables feels like a luxury. I often settle for the cheapest canned goods, knowing it's not the best for my health, but it keeps me from overspending. Even getting around is a balancing act. My car is old, gas prices fluctuate wildly, and I worry about repair costs that could come at any moment. Public transport isn't much better, delays, route changes, the daily squeeze of crowds. I sometimes wonder if I should just move closer to work, but rent in nicer neighborhoods is even more impossible. So I stay put, in this little apartment that's too small and too expensive for what it is, and I count the months until my lease is up, hoping the rent won't jump again. Social life? Forget it. I miss hanging out with friends without checking my bank app every 5 minutes. When they suggest dinner out or a weekend trip, I smile and say I'll pass, even though my heart aches to join. There's a deep loneliness in that, feeling like you're slowly becoming invisible, not because you want to be, but because money gates the doors to connection. Instead, I've become a master of DIY fun, movie nights at home, walks in the park, cooking meals from scratch instead of going out. These things help, but sometimes they feel like a reminder of all I'm missing. The emotional toll is the hardest part. I lie awake at night wondering if I'll ever catch up, if I'll ever have a cushion to fall back on, if I'll ever be free from the anxiety that sneaks up every time I see an unexpected bill or hear about a rising cost. I feel embarrassed, even ashamed, that I can't just make it work like I think I'm supposed to. There's this internal narrative that if I just worked harder, budgeted smarter, hustled more, I'd be fine, but the truth is, it's not that simple. The system is stacked against people like me, where the cost of living climbs relentlessly, and wages don't keep pace. Sometimes, I try to cope by escaping into daydreams, visions of a future where I'm not just surviving, but thriving. A future where I can travel without a spreadsheet, where I can save for a down payment on a home, where I can pursue passions without worrying about their price tag. But those dreams have had to wait. There was a time when I thought I'd start grad school by now, or save enough to launch a side business, or even just have the freedom to switch careers. Instead, every extra dollar has to go to the essentials, to paying down debt, or just staying current on rent. There are moments of hope, though, even if they're fragile. Like when a friend offers to help me proofread a resume, or when I find a little extra in my paycheck after overtime. Or when I remind myself that this phase isn't forever, that I'm building resilience even if it feels like I'm stuck. I've started learning new skills online, quietly investing in myself because I know that's the way forward, even if it takes time. I wish more people understood what it feels like to live this way, not just the numbers, but the emotions. The loneliness, the frustration, the shame, the hope. I'm not asking for pity, I just want my story to be real and heard. Because behind every paycheck, every bill, every no, is a person trying their best to keep going in a system that often feels like it's working against them. So this is me, day by day, balancing on the edge. Trying to find joy in small victories. Holding on to dreams that seem far away but not impossible. And hoping that someday, I'll look back and see this struggle as the moment I built the foundation for something better. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. Some days, it feels like I'm just running in place. No matter how fast or how far I push myself, I'm stuck on this financial treadmill that only speeds up, and I'm gasping for breath, trying not to fall behind. I'm 27 now, living in a tiny apartment that costs more than it should. The rent's always creeping up, and my paycheck somehow stays the same. Every month, it's a balancing act: the groceries, the utilities, the student loans, the car insurance, they pile up, and I'm left scraping together the change. The feeling of being trapped in this system is suffocating. It started out hopeful. Fresh out of college, I had dreams, big ones. I wanted to travel, to move somewhere new, to start saving for my own place. I pictured a future where I wasn't constantly worried about the next bill or if I could afford to treat myself to a night out with friends. But reality hit like a tidal wave. The economy shifted, prices went up, and suddenly my modest paycheck didn't stretch like it used to. I watched in disbelief as rent jumped by hundreds of dollars in a single year, as gas prices climbed, as my grocery bills inflated with every trip to the store. It's like the cost of living has this relentless appetite, and my income just can't keep pace. Everyday decisions have become a battlefield. Should I buy the generic brand or risk stretching my budget for something a little better? Can I afford the bus fare this week, or do I have to walk in the rain again? When my phone buzzes with an unexpected medical bill or a car repair, my heart sinks. It's this constant state of alert, waiting for the next financial blow. I've learned to live with less, but less doesn't feel like a choice anymore. It's survival. The emotional toll is heavy. There's a persistent undercurrent of anxiety, gnawing at the edges of everything I do. Sleep doesn't come easy when your mind is racing through calculations: how much money left after rent, how to cover utilities, what I'll have to skip this month to make ends meet. It feels isolating too. Friends talk about vacations, new gadgets, going out to dinner, and I smile along, but inside, I'm quietly mourning all those things I can't have, not yet, maybe never. It's a lonely place to be when you feel like you're missing out on so much life. Sometimes, the pressure makes me question my worth. Why can't I get ahead? Am I not working hard enough? But deep down, I know this isn't just about me, it's the system. The cost of living keeps rising faster than wages. Job security feels like a fragile illusion. And with every passing day, the gap between where I am and where I want to be grows wider. Coping means learning to be resilient in small ways. I've become a master of budgeting apps and discount coupons. I cook meals from scratch because eating out is a luxury I can't afford. I limit social outings, even when I desperately want connection. But these small sacrifices come at a cost to my spirit. Sometimes, I feel like I'm fading into the background, just a ghost navigating a harsh economic landscape. Despite everything, I hold on to hope. I still dream, even if they've changed shape. I dream of a time when I can breathe easier, when I can save money without fear, when I can travel or buy a home or simply not dread the next bill. Those dreams feel fragile, but they're my lifeline. I remind myself that this chapter doesn't have to define my whole story. The truth is, I'm tired. Tired of feeling like I'm constantly one step behind, tired of shrinking my world to fit this tight budget, tired of pretending I'm okay when inside, I'm not. But I'm also stubborn, and I refuse to give up. I keep pushing, keep hoping, keep planning for a better day, even if it feels like that day is always just out of reach. Living with ongoing financial pressure is like living in a slow storm. It doesn't always thunder loudly, but the drizzle never stops, wearing you down little by little. And sometimes, all I want is a moment of sun. I never thought I'd find myself stuck like this, like quicksand, sinking deeper every day no matter how much I struggle. I'm 26, working full-time, juggling 2 part-time jobs on weekends just to keep the bills paid, yet somehow the money always feels like it's slipping through my fingers faster than I can hold on. It's like the world around me is moving forward, people making progress, chasing their dreams, buying homes, traveling, but I'm just here. Stuck. Caught in a cycle where expenses climb relentlessly, and my paycheck barely keeps pace. I remember the moment it started to feel real, when I sat down with my bank app late one night, hoping to see some cushion after rent and groceries, and found nothing but a depressing zero. No buffer, no safety net, just emptiness. That feeling of panic and helplessness hit me like a punch in the gut. I thought, this can't be it. This can't be how adult life is supposed to feel. But day after day, week after week, month after month, it's been the same story. The rent goes up, the grocery bill rises, the electricity bill climbs, and somehow, the minimum payments on credit cards hang over me like a dark cloud I can't escape. The economic environment feels like a crushing weight. Inflation isn't just a headline, it's in every trip to the store where I stare at the price tag, trying to calculate what I can afford to buy without breaking the bank. I've learned to ration coffee, skip lunches, avoid social outings. It's embarrassing sometimes to say no when friends want to meet up because I can't afford it. It feels like I'm slowly fading from their lives, even though I'm desperately trying to stay connected. What frustrates me the most is how unfair it feels, working hard, sometimes over 50 hours a week, but still feeling like I'm falling behind. My income barely changes, but everything else keeps rising. It's this endless chase with no finish line. And the system feels rigged. I hear about the stock market booming, new businesses thriving, people getting raises and promotions, but that's not my reality. I'm not complaining about the work, I'm complaining about the environment I'm forced to navigate. A world where stability feels like a luxury, and every unexpected expense is a potential crisis. Emotionally, it's exhausting. There are days I wake up with a knot in my stomach, dreading the mail because I know bills are coming. Sometimes I cry in the shower because it's the only place I can be alone and let the stress out. It feels like being trapped in a cage with invisible bars made of debts and obligations. I try to stay positive, but the anxiety creeps in, and I'm afraid it will never get better. I've had to put my dreams on hold. I wanted to move out of the city, find a quieter place where rent isn't a death sentence. I wanted to go back to school, finish my degree in graphic design, and maybe start freelancing. I dreamed of traveling, seeing new places, and meeting people from different cultures. But those dreams feel distant now, almost like illusions. Every dollar has a purpose, and that purpose is survival. Saving feels impossible, investing feels like a joke, and planning for the future feels like a cruel game of pretending. Coping with this reality means learning to celebrate small victories. Like the day I managed to put aside $20 for an emergency fund, even if it took 3 paychecks to do it. Like the nights I allow myself to watch a movie instead of working overtime, reminding myself that mental health matters too. I lean on the few friends who understand, the ones who don't judge me for my situation. I found solace in writing, putting my feelings on paper, trying to make sense of the chaos. Despite it all, I hold on to hope. I'm stubborn that way. Hope that maybe one day the system will shift, that wages will catch up with expenses, that I'll find a way to break free from this cycle. Hope that I can reclaim my dreams and live without this constant shadow of financial fear. I know it won't be easy. I know the path is steep. But somewhere deep down, I believe there's a future where I'm not just surviving, but thriving. Until then, I keep going. Day by day. Paycheck by paycheck. Dream by postponed dream. Because giving up isn't an option, even if the system feels like it's built to keep me down. I'm more than my bank balance. More than my debts. More than this invisible cage. And that's what keeps me fighting. I never thought I'd still be living like this at 28. You know, the constant mental math every time I walk into a grocery store, the way my heart beats faster at the checkout screen when I see the total inch past what I budgeted. I did everything I thought I was supposed to do, went to college, got the degree, applied to jobs for months, finally landed one. But somehow, I'm still barely making it, stuck in this loop where money goes out faster than it ever seems to come in. I live in a one-bedroom apartment I split with a roommate because it's all I can afford. The ceiling leaks when it rains, and the heat barely works in the winter, but the rent is below market, so we stay. Rent takes up almost half of my paycheck every month, and I hold my breath every time our landlord talks about adjusting it to match current rates. It's not that I don't understand inflation or market value, it's just that my salary hasn't adjusted to match anything. Most days, I wake up early, hit the snooze button once, then start my day with a mug of instant coffee, no more fancy cafe lattes, those stopped last year. I catch the bus to work because owning a car is out of the question between insurance, gas, maintenance. Even with the job I have, an administrative role that sounds more professional than it pays, I sometimes pick up freelance gigs on weekends. Proofreading, editing, anything to pull in an extra $100 to stretch me through the next utility bill or medical copay. What gets to me isn't just the scarcity. It's the relentlessness. There's no break. If I get sick, I panic, not because of the illness itself, but because taking a day off might mean not getting paid. If my laptop breaks, it's not just an inconvenience, it's a catastrophe. There's always something waiting around the corner, car repairs for my roommate, a rent hike, an unexpected dental issue. And you know what's worse? The way this pressure changes how you see everything. My choices aren't about joy or growth anymore, they're about minimizing risk. I skip social events because I can't afford the drinks or the Uber rides home. I don't travel, even though I long to see places I used to dream about, Barcelona, the Grand Canyon, even just the coast for a weekend. Birthdays and holidays are anxiety-inducing. I want to give the people I love gifts that mean something, but I usually end up baking something homemade and apologizing. The emotional toll is heavy. There's a weight I carry all the time. I used to wake up feeling optimistic. Now I wake up feeling anxious. There are nights when I lie in bed doing the math, calculating exactly how long I could make things last if I lost my job tomorrow. I scroll through job listings like a reflex, even when I don't have the time or energy to apply. I compare myself to old classmates who seem to be thriving, buying homes, getting promotions, traveling. I wonder what I did wrong. I wonder if maybe I just wasn't cut out for this world that keeps raising the bar while never letting me catch up. I had dreams once. Real ones. I wanted to write a novel, maybe get a master's in creative writing. I wanted to adopt a dog, live alone, have a balcony with plants I didn't have to bring inside during winter. I used to imagine a cozy, sunlit home with bookshelves I filled myself and music playing in the background while I cooked something new. But those dreams are on hold now. Not gone, just shelved, like the books I can't afford to buy. I tell myself it's temporary. I tell myself that I'm building resilience, that I'm doing the best I can with what I have. And sometimes, that's true. I've learned to stretch $1, to cook meals that last 3 days, to mend clothes instead of buying new ones. There's pride in that, in survival. But there's grief too, for the life I thought I'd have, the person I thought I'd be by now. Still, I cope. Some days better than others. I write in my journal to let it out. I talk to friends who understand, who are in the same boat. We joke about the absurdity of it all, laugh so we don't cry. We swap budgeting tips like recipes, and we cheer each other on when someone negotiates a raise or finally pays off a credit card. I try to remind myself I'm not alone, even when it feels isolating. And hope, somehow, it lingers. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'm not giving up. I still dream, even if those dreams look different now. I still believe in better days. I still believe I deserve joy, even if I have to fight for every inch of it. It's strange how fast life can shift from dreaming big to just trying to get by. I used to picture myself living in a small apartment in the city, working in a job that made me feel fulfilled, saving up for travel, maybe even starting my own business. I thought by 28, I'd have a sense of stability. Instead, I'm counting quarters at the laundromat, skipping meals to pay for Wi-Fi, and wondering if I'll ever get out from under this weight that money seems to press into my chest every morning when I wake up. My financial pressure started like a slow leak. First, it was student loans. I told myself everyone had them, that it was an investment. But the moment my 6-month grace period ended, reality knocked hard. I wasn't making enough to comfortably cover rent, groceries, and those payments. So I deferred. Then I got hit with interest. And suddenly, it wasn't just a leak, it was a flood. Everyday decisions are shaped by what I can afford, which often feels like not much at all. Grocery shopping has become a game of strategy, no-name brands, checking the sell-by bin, buying less fresh food because canned or frozen lasts longer. I used to love cooking. Now, I dread the mental math of whether a recipe will stretch into enough meals to make it worth it. Forget eating out unless someone else is paying. Even then, I feel guilty. The apartment I share with 2 roommates is barely affordable. We live in a building where the landlord forgets repairs, and the rent jumps every year. Still, it's cheaper than moving. I sleep with earplugs because the walls are paper thin and the guy upstairs plays video games all night. My desk is crammed into the corner of my bedroom, where I work remotely. My back hurts constantly from the chair I got off Craigslist for $15. But a new one isn't in the budget. Nothing is, really. Gas prices fluctuate weekly, and every increase means a recalibration of the budget. Do I drive less? Do I skip one trip to see my parents this month? I haven't flown anywhere in 3 years, not because I don't want to, but because every penny has a destination before it lands in my bank account. And with inflation being what it is, those pennies just don't stretch like they used to. Emotionally, it wears on me. I carry this invisible heaviness, a quiet shame that creeps in during conversations when people talk about weekend getaways, concerts, new clothes, hobbies they're taking up. I smile and nod, but inside I'm calculating how many hours I'd have to work to afford something similar. It's isolating. I avoid events because I can't afford the Uber there, or the drinks, or the birthday gift. So I lose touch with people. Friendships fade, not out of lack of care, but lack of cash. It's not like I'm not working. I've got a full-time job in marketing, remote, decent on paper, but the pay hasn't kept up with the cost of living. Raises come once a year, and they don't even keep pace with inflation. I freelance on the side when I can, but that takes time I don't always have. Burnout is a constant shadow. I wake up tired, go to sleep anxious. Even rest feels like a privilege I can't afford. The dreams I used to carry feel like postcards from another life. I wanted to go back to school for a master's degree, something that could open more doors. But even with scholarships, the idea of adding more debt makes my stomach turn. I thought I'd travel, backpack across Europe, see Tokyo, maybe volunteer abroad. Now I just hope I can afford a weekend trip to the mountains one day. I wanted to move into my own place, maybe even adopt a dog. But the thought of affording rent and pet care feels like fantasy. Sometimes I cope by numbing out. Watching YouTube late at night, scrolling through Reddit threads where others talk about the same struggles. There's some comfort in knowing I'm not alone, but it also makes me angry. How did we all end up here? How is it that so many of us work so hard and still feel like we're barely hanging on? I used to believe hard work would equal success. Now I know that's not always true. Other times, I journal. Not to fix anything, just to let the words out so they don't eat me alive. I write letters to my future self, hoping they'll someday read them from a place of peace, stability, maybe even joy. I try to practice gratitude, because despite it all, I'm still here. Still pushing forward. I postponed dating, because I feel like I have nothing to offer. I paused plans to move to a bigger city, because the idea of starting over financially terrifies me. I put off seeing a therapist, even though I know I probably need one. I tell myself it's temporary, but temporary has started to feel like forever. What keeps me going? Hope, stubbornness, maybe both. The belief that things can change, even if they aren't changing now. That someday I'll look back and this chapter will be a story I tell, not a loop I'm stuck in. I hold on to little wins, paying off a credit card, getting through a month without borrowing money, finding a free event to attend and feel human for an evening. I'm not lazy. I'm not reckless. I'm just a young adult in an economy that asks too much and gives too little. I want what everyone wants, to feel safe, to feel seen, to have a future that feels bigger than just surviving. And while it's hard right now, harder than I ever imagined, I still believe I'll get there. But today, I'm just trying to make it to payday. I used to think adulthood would feel like freedom. When I was a kid, I'd imagine this version of myself, 20-something, confident, maybe living in a small but cozy apartment filled with plants and books, working a job I didn't hate, drinking decent coffee from a ceramic mug I bought at a local artist's market. That image kept me going through a lot of dark days in high school. But here I am now, 27, living in a shared apartment with 2 other people, where the bathroom door doesn't fully close unless you lift it and slam it into place. I work 2 part-time jobs that barely cover my rent, let alone leave room for any sort of peace of mind. I don't own plants. I don't buy books anymore, I borrow them from the library, carefully tracking due dates so I don't rack up late fees I can't afford. The only ceramic mug I have is chipped and says "World's Best Boss," a secret Santa gift from an old job I got laid off from. This isn't how I imagined freedom. It's more like a quiet, constant panic. The economy's been recovering, they say. I see it on the news, stock markets hitting record highs, tech companies posting insane profits. But my rent went up again last month. That's the 3rd increase in 2 years. They don't fix anything in this place, the heater's been making this horrible clicking sound for weeks, but somehow there's always justification for raising the rent. Inflation, my landlord says in the email, like that explains everything. I make $18 an hour at the cafe and $22 tutoring high school students online, but I don't get benefits from either gig. I've applied to full-time jobs, hundreds of them, literally hundreds, but I get ghosted more often than not. Sometimes I wonder if something is wrong with me. If I'm not good enough, not smart enough, not whatever enough. I budget down to the last dollar. Every month. I know exactly what day my phone bill hits. When my student loan payments come out, they resumed last fall and I cried the day I saw the amount, and how much I can spend on groceries each week. Some nights, I skip dinner and just make tea with oat milk to trick myself into feeling full. I haven't told my roommates that, I don't want pity. We all have our own battles. What I hate most is the way money affects every single decision I make. Want to go out for drinks after work? Gotta say no, it's $12 for a cocktail now, and that's half my grocery budget for the week. Want to visit my parents, just for a weekend? Can't afford the train ticket, let alone take time off. Even stuff like dating feels impossible. I've cancelled first dates because I couldn't afford dinner and didn't want to admit it. I carry this tension all the time, in my shoulders, my jaw, even in my sleep. I dream about bills. I wake up thinking about what I can cut next month. I worry constantly about the what-ifs. What if I get sick? What if my laptop breaks and I can't tutor anymore? What if the cafe closes? People tell me I should be saving for retirement, building a safety net. I laugh at that. I don't even have a savings account anymore. I emptied it 6 months ago to cover a dental bill. No insurance, of course. I think a lot about the dreams I've had to postpone, or maybe just abandon. I wanted to go to grad school. I wanted to write. I even started a manuscript 2 years ago, but I haven't touched it in months. I tell myself I'm too tired, but the truth is, it's hard to write when you're anxious all the time. When you feel like you're sprinting just to stay in place. Sometimes I wonder what it would feel like to have a cushion. Not even wealth, just enough that I didn't have to do mental gymnastics every time I wanted to buy toothpaste. Enough to afford rest. I try not to be bitter. I remind myself I'm not alone. Most of my friends are in the same boat. We trade tips on cheap groceries, share job leads, even split subscriptions. There's a weird sort of solidarity in that, knowing we're all just trying to make it through, together. My coping mechanisms are small but sacred. I take long walks after my shifts, even when I'm exhausted. I listen to music that makes me feel something other than dread. I text my little brother memes every day, and he sends me voice notes from college. He's studying engineering, says he'll be rich someday and let me crash in his guest room. I hold on to that like a lifeline. And I still dream, even if it feels fragile. I dream about having a room of my own, where I can write and sleep without hearing someone else's TV through the wall. I dream about traveling again, even if it's just to another city for a weekend. I dream about not feeling guilty every time I spend money on something just because I want it. I've learned how to survive in this system, but I don't think we were meant to live like this, constantly calculating our worth in dollars, constantly choosing which parts of ourselves we can afford to nourish. So yeah, I'm getting by. But getting by shouldn't cost this much. And I don't know how long I can keep running on fumes. I don't really know when it started to feel like this, like I was running a race with weights strapped to my ankles. Maybe it was the first time I overdrafted my bank account to buy groceries, or when I started measuring my week and how many meals I could stretch from rice and canned beans. But lately, it's like the pressure never lets up. I'm 27 years old, and I feel like I'm standing still while the cost of everything around me keeps rising like floodwater. I work 2 jobs. One is at a cafe near my apartment, where I open up at 5:30 a.m. 5 days a week. The other is freelance design work I do in the evenings and on weekends, when I'm not too exhausted to look at a screen. Combined, they just about cover rent, utilities, groceries, and minimum payments on my student loans. That's it. No room for error, no room for savings. No room for living, really. I went to school for design, graphic and UX. I believed in that dream, you know? I imagined myself working for some cool startup or a creative agency in a bright, open office with exposed brick and plants in every corner. I thought I'd be making enough to support myself, maybe help my mom with her medical bills, even travel once in a while. I pictured a future. But here I am, making logos for small businesses that want them edgy but corporate, getting ghosted by clients who say they'll pay next week and never do. Rent in this city has gone up by $400 since I moved here 4 years ago. My income hasn't. I've had to give up my studio and move into a tiny room in a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 strangers. We're polite to each other, but we're not friends. We exist beside one another, headphones in, doors closed. It's like we're all carrying our own silent struggle, just trying to survive. Groceries are an exercise in mental math now. I never shop without a calculator app open. Almond milk or eggs? Bread or fruit? Last week, I spent 15 minutes comparing the cost per ounce on different bags of rice because even a dollar matters. I haven't eaten out in months, unless you count the $1 pizza slice I bought after skipping lunch and shaking through a 6-hour shift. I miss spontaneity. I miss walking through the city and stopping at a bookstore just because I felt like it. Now I don't go into shops unless I absolutely need something, and even then, I feel a tightness in my chest. Will my card go through? Can I cover this and still make rent? It's like money is a ghost that haunts every part of my life. There's no escape. The mental toll is something I didn't expect. I cry more than I admit. I get these anxiety spirals, especially at night when I can't sleep. I start thinking about what happens if I lose my job. What if I get sick and can't work for a week? What if my freelance clients dry up? I don't have health insurance. One emergency and I'm completely screwed. People say just budget better, like that's a solution. I have a spreadsheet that tracks every penny. It doesn't matter. You can't budget your way out of an economy that keeps taking more and giving less. The price of everything, food, rent, transportation, keeps climbing, and my wages don't. I'm not careless. I'm just stuck. There are good days, too. Sometimes I finish a project I'm proud of, and I feel that old flicker of passion. Sometimes I laugh with a regular at the cafe, and for a moment I remember what human connection feels like. I listen to music while I clean. I text my younger sister and she sends me memes. I try to remember that I'm still a person, not just a cog. I've put a lot of dreams on hold. I wanted to start a podcast. I wanted to save for a trip to Japan. I'd been fascinated with the culture since high school. I even dreamed about owning a tiny design studio one day, hiring people like me who just needed a chance. But now I'd settle for a stable job with benefits and maybe, just maybe, a one-bedroom apartment. I'm not lazy. I'm not entitled. I'm tired. I'm so tired. I work hard, harder than I ever imagined I'd need to just to stay afloat. And yet, I still feel like I'm failing. Like I'm behind everyone else. Social media doesn't help. Seeing people take trips, buy homes, have weddings, I try to remind myself that people post their highlight reels, not their overdrafts. But it's hard not to compare. Sometimes I think about moving back in with my mom. But she's struggling, too. Her hours got cut, and she's been skipping her prescriptions to pay bills. I send her what I can, when I can. I can't be another burden. So I stay here and push through, hoping something breaks, something changes. There's a part of me that still hopes. It's quieter than it used to be, but it's there. I hope for policies that actually address rent inflation, living wages, healthcare access. I hope for jobs that see me as a human, not just a number on a payroll. I hope for a world where surviving doesn't take everything from you. Until then, I keep going. Wake up before the sun, catch the early bus, make coffee for strangers, send invoices, and cross my fingers they pay. I keep sketching ideas in my notebook. I keep dreaming, even if I don't let myself dream too big. Because sometimes the only thing that keeps me from falling apart is the belief that maybe, just maybe, things can still get better. I'm 26, and I've been running on financial fumes for what feels like my entire adult life. I live in a small studio apartment on the edge of the city. The kind of place where the heat only half works, and the ceiling fans are loud enough to make conversation a challenge. It's not glamorous, but it's all I can afford, barely. Each month, rent eats up more than 45% of my take-home pay. The rest goes to groceries, cheap, processed stuff mostly, utilities, and the kind of expenses you can't avoid no matter how broke you are, like bus fare, phone bills, and the occasional medication for my asthma. I graduated into a pandemic, into a market that had no room for what I was trained to do. My degree is in graphic design. I used to dream about working at a creative agency or freelancing with cool, independent brands. Now, I work full-time as an office assistant at a logistics company. It's not that I hate it, it's just not what I imagined I'd be doing. The job pays $42,000 a year before taxes, and that number sounds decent until you try to survive on it in a city where even a loaf of bread can cost $6. Every decision I make is filtered through the lens of cost. When friends ask me to go out, I check my bank account before I answer. I almost never say yes. When my shoes wore out last month, I glued the sole back on and kept wearing them. I ration my groceries to make meals last longer, cans of beans, frozen vegetables, rice, repeat. There's no such thing as casual spending anymore. Everything is weighed, measured, and usually discarded as not essential. There's this constant hum of anxiety in the back of my mind. It's not always loud, but it's always there. Sometimes it spikes, like when my landlord sent an email about raising the rent by $150 or when my coworker mentioned layoffs. I don't have savings. I've never been able to build any. Every dollar I earn is already spoken for the second it hits my account. It's like treading water with a lead vest on, no matter how hard I kick, I'm not getting anywhere. The worst part isn't just the stress, it's the shame. I feel like I should be doing better. Like I failed some invisible test everyone else passed. Social media makes it worse. I see people I went to college with buying homes, taking vacations, starting families. And I'm here, debating whether I can afford to replace a cracked phone screen or if I should just deal with the glitchy, half-functioning mess a little longer. I try to cope. I journal, I listen to podcasts about money and minimalism, I remind myself this is temporary, even when it doesn't feel that way. I've stopped drinking entirely, not just for the cost but for my health. I take long walks because they're free, and sometimes the quiet helps. I go to the library to feel a sense of peace, to sit near books that remind me of who I wanted to be. I've had to let go of some dreams. For now, at least. I wanted to get a master's degree, maybe teach part-time while freelancing. I wanted to travel. I wanted to own a dog, one of those big clumsy golden retrievers that would greet me at the door after a long day. But I don't have the time, money, or space for any of that. I tell myself I'll get there eventually, but I wonder if that's just something I say to get through the day. Some mornings, I wake up and lie in bed just staring at the ceiling, wondering if this is all there is. Not in a dramatic, hopeless way, more like a quiet resignation. Like I'm stuck in a system where hard work doesn't guarantee progress, where prices go up but my pay doesn't, where every step forward comes with 2 steps back. Rent hikes, utility increases, food costs that make you flinch at the checkout line. It's like I'm running on a treadmill set to a speed I didn't choose. Still, I keep going. I show up to work every day. I smile when I don't feel like it. I make to-do lists, clip coupons, and chase every freelance opportunity that crosses my inbox. There's a strange kind of dignity in doing your best with what little you have. It's not romantic, it's not heroic, but it's real. I think a lot about what it would feel like to breathe without pressure. To make a choice without calculating the cost. To buy groceries without that dull ache in my chest. To plan a future with confidence instead of just surviving the present. I want to know what it's like to live without fear, without shame, without constantly needing to justify every dollar I spend or don't spend. I haven't given up. I still believe there's a way forward. I'm applying to better paying jobs. I'm building a small online portfolio in hopes of pivoting back to design. I dream of one day moving to a place with more sunlight, where I can afford a desk by a window and maybe even adopt that dog I keep picturing. I know I'm not the only one. That helps, in a way. It makes the struggle feel a little less isolating. We're out here, all of us, young adults trying to make a life in a world that keeps moving the goalposts. We hustle, we ration, we stretch, we endure. And somehow, through all of it, we still find ways to laugh, to hope, to keep going. Maybe that's enough, for now. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I used to think adulthood meant freedom to make my own choices, chase my dreams, create a life that looked something like the future I saw in my head during late-night dorm conversations. Now I'm 26, and most days, it just feels like a constant calculation. What can I afford? What can I live without? What part of myself do I have to put on hold to make it to the end of the month? I work full-time as a content coordinator for a mid-sized tech company. It sounds decent when I say it out loud, especially to people who knew me back when I was working retail and living with my parents. But the reality behind the title is different. I bring in $3,200 a month after taxes. Rent in my city is $1 a one-bedroom in an old building with a leaky faucet and a heater that makes clunking sounds in the winter. Then there's electricity, Wi-Fi, groceries, gas, student loan payments, and the ever-rising cost of just existing. By the time everything is paid, I'm lucky if I have $100 left for the extras, which mostly means coping with life, not splurging on anything extravagant. Groceries are one of the hardest things. I used to enjoy trying new recipes, making fresh meals. Now I buy what's on sale. Canned beans, rice, store-brand everything. Some weeks, I skip breakfast and call it intermittent fasting when really, it's budgeting. If I get sick, I don't go to the doctor unless it's serious, I can't afford to. My health insurance has a deductible so high it might as well be a scam. My car needs new tires, but I've been putting that off too. I drive slower, hoping they'll last a few more months. There's this crushing feeling that no matter how hard I try, I'm always one step behind. I've taken on freelance gigs on top of my job, writing product descriptions, editing resumes, even tutoring English online. It helps, but it also means I'm working evenings and weekends. Burnout doesn't feel like a buzzword anymore, it's a physical ache, an emotional numbness. I can't remember the last time I felt truly rested. Even when I sleep, I dream about bills. I think what hurts the most is how small my world has become. I see friends on social media traveling, getting married, buying homes, having babies. I don't resent them, most of them are working hard too, or they have support systems I don't. But I feel left behind. I've turned down birthday dinners, trips, weddings, not because I don't care, but because I can't afford the Uber, the gift, or the hotel. I've stopped getting invited sometimes, and that's the worst part. As if poverty makes me less lovable. The emotional toll is something I didn't anticipate. There's a constant hum of anxiety, like background noise in my brain. When my phone rings, I panic it's a debt collector. When the mail comes, I dread opening it. There's this persistent shame, even though I know this economy is broken, even though I know I'm doing my best. I've cried in grocery store parking lots, hidden my panic attacks during Zoom calls, smiled through conversations when I was wondering if I'd overdrawn my bank account that morning. I used to dream about grad school. I wanted to study psychology, maybe become a counselor, help people navigate their own struggles. But I can't take on more debt. Even if I could, the thought of quitting my job to study feels reckless, impossible. I've postponed traveling, learning another language, taking dance classes, little things that used to make life feel like more than just survival. Even dating has become a luxury. Who has time or energy to build something new when you're this tired all the time? To cope, I journal, when I have the energy. I take walks, breathe deeply, remind myself that I'm not the only one. Sometimes I volunteer on weekends at a food pantry, and it helps, ironically. Being around others who are struggling reminds me that I'm not defective or lazy. The system is just rigged. Wages haven't kept up. Rent's out of control. Healthcare is a minefield. And every time a news anchor talks about inflation or interest rates, I want to scream, people are drowning. Do you even see us? But I still have hope. Not the shiny, naive kind I used to carry, but something quieter. Resilient. I still believe in better days, not just for me, but for all of us trying to make it. I believe in policy changes, in people organizing, in compassion growing stronger than greed. I've had to lower my expectations of what success looks like, but I haven't let go of the idea that joy is still possible. Sometimes, that joy looks like a cup of coffee on my balcony before work. Or a good book from the library. Or a friend who drops off soup when I'm sick. Small things, but they matter. They keep me going. I don't know what the next year looks like. I know I'll keep working, keep fighting, keep hoping. Maybe I'll get a raise. Maybe I'll find a better job. Maybe things will ease, just a little. Until then, I'll keep showing up. Not because it's easy, but because I haven't let go of the belief that I'm worth more than just surviving. That someday, I'll thrive, not despite all this, but because I never stopped trying. Some days, I wake up and lie there for a while before moving. It's not because I'm tired, although I usually am, but because I'm trying to stretch the moment before I have to face everything again. Rent. Groceries. The utility bill I forgot was due. The text from my friend about splitting dinner that I know I can't afford. I'm 27, and I feel like I've already failed at something I never really had a chance to win. I work full-time as a customer support rep for a tech startup. On paper, it sounds like something you might expect to pay decently, especially in a city like this. But I make $21 an hour, just enough to survive, not enough to breathe. After taxes, rent, insurance, and my student loan payments, I have maybe $200 left for the entire month. That's supposed to cover food, transit, emergencies, and anything else life decides to throw at me. I wasn't always like this. I used to think I was going to do something big. I studied journalism because I believed in stories, the kind that change things, expose truths. But writing gigs didn't pay, or they paid in exposure. I waited tables, sold clothes, tutored on the side. The grind wore me down, and eventually, I traded dreams for stability. Or what looked like it. The thing no one tells you is that this so-called stability is exhausting in its own way. It's waking up every day feeling like you're drowning just a little slower than before. I track every dollar. I've become someone who debates whether to take the bus or walk 45 minutes in the rain because I don't want to reload my transit card. I ration groceries like I'm in some kind of modern-day war zone, meat only once or twice a week, eggs when they're on sale. I make spreadsheets, use cashback apps, sign up for reward programs, and I still feel like I'm running in place. What really gets to me isn't just the scarcity, it's the unpredictability. It's the dental work I put off for the third year in a row. The car repair I paid for with a credit card that's already close to maxed out. The rising rent I can't do anything about because I can't afford to move. It's knowing that one wrong step, one illness, one layoff, could mean complete collapse. And yet, I try to act like I've got it together. I show up to work with a smile, answer emails with forced cheer, and joke about being perpetually broke with my coworkers, even though it's not funny. I scroll past Instagram posts of people on vacation, at weddings, buying homes, and feel like I'm aging in dog years. I want to be happy for them, some of them are my friends, but it's hard not to feel like I'm stuck in a different timeline. One where adulthood is all struggle and no reward. I've had to let go of things I used to dream about. Travel, for one. I thought I'd see Europe by now, visit Tokyo, maybe write from a little cafe in Lisbon. Now, I'm not sure I'll ever leave this city, let alone the country. I thought I'd be able to afford a place of my own by now, maybe with a little desk by the window where I could write on weekends. Instead, I live with 2 roommates and can't remember the last time I wrote anything just for me. Dating? I paused that, too. It's hard to build a connection when you're constantly worrying about whether you can split an Uber or if your debit card will get declined. I've canceled dates because I couldn't afford a drink. I've ghosted people because I was too ashamed to explain why. Sometimes, I wonder if it's me. If I didn't work hard enough or make the right choices. But then I look around, so many people I know are in the same boat. Bright, capable people who are burned out and barely scraping by. It feels like we were handed a broken game and told to win anyway. The rules keep changing, wages stagnate, inflation rises, and the cost of simply existing goes up. It's like trying to run uphill with weights strapped to your legs, while someone keeps pouring water on the path. I cope in small ways. I journal a lot. I cook when I can, nothing fancy, but something about preparing my own food helps me feel in control. I borrow books from the library and lose myself in them. I take walks when the weather's decent. Sometimes I call my mom just to hear her voice, even if I pretend everything's fine. I try to laugh when I can, and let myself cry when I need to. I'm not giving up, I don't think I could even if I wanted to. But I'm tired. And I wish we could be more honest about how hard it is. There's this constant pressure to present your life as better than it is, to stay grateful, to avoid negative energy. But pretending doesn't make things better. I think we need more truth, not less. More stories about what it really means to try and survive in a world that seems designed to keep you down. I still have dreams. They're quieter now, maybe smaller, but they're there. I want to write again, not just emails and help desk scripts, but real stories. I want to move somewhere with trees and light and space. I want to love someone without being afraid they'll see how broke I really am. I want to wake up and not feel like life is something I'm barely affording. Until then, I'll keep going. Not because it's easy, but because it's what I've learned to do. One day, $1, one breath at a time. I've been doing the math in my head again, my own version of mental gymnastics that I've gotten pretty good at over the years. Rent is due in 4 days. My checking account has $328.49. My paycheck lands in 5 days. Groceries are running low. My credit card is almost maxed out. And I still haven't paid for my bus pass this month. That's the usual rhythm of things now, one long, exhausting loop of just barely making it. I'm 27, and I live in a tiny studio apartment on the edge of the city. It's one of those places where you can cook breakfast, answer emails, and brush your teeth all within a 5-foot radius. I work full-time as an administrative assistant at a mid-sized company, the kind that brags about being like family but quietly reduced our annual raises to performance-based bonuses right before inflation went nuclear. When I started working there 4 years ago, I thought I'd stay just long enough to stabilize, save up a bit, and move on to something bigger, maybe go back to school or finally launch the small design business I used to dream about. But every year, the goalposts moved. Rent jumped. Groceries became pricier. The emergency fund I was slowly building had to be emptied when my car's engine died last winter. And let's not even talk about medical bills. I feel like I'm stuck in a machine that runs on the fuel of almost enough money to feel safe. Almost enough energy to keep going. Almost enough time to figure out a way out. Every decision feels loaded now. When I grocery shop, I calculate cost per ounce and debate between buying produce or sticking to frozen meals that will stretch for the week. I haven't bought a new pair of shoes in over a year because mine still function, even if they squeak when I walk and let in water when it rains. I used to love birthdays. Now I dread them. They mark another year gone without progress. Another year of telling friends, I'm just figuring things out right now. The truth is, I've been figuring things out since I graduated college, and I'm scared I'll still be saying that at 40. It's more than just the math. It's the weight. The weight of watching people I grew up with settle into homes, start families, take vacations, things that feel mythical to me now. I scroll through Instagram and see photos of beach trips, engagement rings, smiling faces in newly renovated kitchens. I don't resent them, not really. But I feel like I'm on the outside of a life I was told I'd have if I just worked hard enough. I did all the right things. Or so I thought. I got good grades. Took out student loans, because that's what we were told was necessary to get ahead. Chose a practical major, communications, because creative writing was too risky. I interned, networked, smiled through interviews, accepted low-paying jobs because I needed experience. And now I'm here. Drowning in bills. Some days I cope by laughing about it with friends. Dark humor is one of the few currencies we still have. We text memes about late-stage capitalism and compare who's eaten the saddest dinner this week. My top entry, mustard on toast. It's a kind of bonding, I guess. We're all in the same slow-burning boat, and sometimes naming the absurdity is the only thing that helps. Other days I cope by numbing out. Scrolling endlessly. Sleeping as much as I can. Listening to the same playlist on repeat because silence feels heavier than noise. There are nights when anxiety gnaws at me like a rat in the walls. I lie in bed thinking about the unpaid dental work I need, about what I'll do if I get laid off, about whether I'll ever be able to have a kid, something I used to want so deeply but now can't even imagine affording. And then there are rare, quiet moments when I dream. When I let myself picture a different life. One where I can exhale. Where I can order a second drink at dinner without doing the mental calculation. Where I can buy my sister a real birthday present instead of just writing her a long card. Where I don't have to choose between rent and rest. Sometimes I imagine a small cabin in the woods, with a garden and a dog and time to write again. Other times I picture a bustling little studio in the city where I freelance and have clients who respect my time and pay me fairly. I don't need to be rich. I just want to feel stable. But then the dream fog lifts, and I'm back in my cramped apartment, watching the steam rise from my single cup of coffee, knowing I can't afford a refill. I've had to postpone so much. Grad school. Travel. Dating seriously. I keep telling myself that things will change, that I'm just in a tight season, but the season has lasted years. It's like waiting for spring in a world that's forgotten how to thaw. I'm tired. Not just physically, but in my bones. The kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep. Still, I keep going. I wake up, I go to work, I smile when I need to, and I do what I can with what I have. I clip coupons. I say no to invites I can't afford. I hustle on the side doing freelance gigs that barely cover the gap. I keep track of every cent in a spreadsheet I've named Hope. Because even if hope feels like a luxury, it's the only one I still let myself have. I'm not giving up. I don't know how to. But I wish it didn't have to be this hard just to stand still. I'm 29, and every day feels like a balancing act on a fraying tightrope. One misstep, an unexpected car repair, a medical bill, a cut in hours, and the whole thing comes crashing down. I used to think that by this age, I'd be living a version of the life my parents had. Not luxurious, but stable. Safe. Instead, I feel like I'm constantly treading water in an ocean where the waves never stop and the shore keeps drifting further away. I work full-time at a nonprofit doing community outreach. It's work I care about, deeply. But it doesn't pay much. I make about $39,000 a year before taxes. That used to sound like enough. I budgeted, planned, and told myself that if I just worked hard, I'd move up. Maybe even buy a small place someday. But every year since graduation, the cost of everything, rent, groceries, gas, health insurance, has climbed faster than my salary. What used to be just tight has become suffocating. My rent alone is $1,350 a month for a one-bedroom in a modest neighborhood. Not even a nice one, just safe-ish, with a grocery store and a laundromat close by. I thought about getting a roommate to split costs, but the lease doesn't allow subletting, and I don't have the savings to move. The place is drafty in the winter, scorching in the summer, and the plumbing groans like it's in pain every time I shower. But it's home, for now. Grocery shopping feels like a strategy game. I go in with a calculator on my phone, stick to the outer aisles, and avoid anything that isn't store brand. I used to cook as a hobby. Now, I cook just to stay fed. Rice, beans, frozen vegetables, and eggs are staples. I dream about going to the farmer's market like I used to in college, but now it's all about stretching each dollar to the max socially. It's isolating. My friends still invite me out, to bars, concerts, dinners, but most of the time, I can't afford to go. I make excuses, I've got an early morning, or not feeling great tonight. I hate lying, but saying, I can't afford it, carries a weight that makes people uncomfortable. They'll offer to cover me sometimes, but I don't want to be someone else's charity. So I withdraw. Slowly. Quietly. Until the invites come less frequently, and I start to wonder if I'm becoming invisible. It's not just money, it's the mental load. The constant calculating and second-guessing. Can I afford this? What if I don't? Should I put it on a credit card and pray for a windfall later? I haven't taken a real vacation in 5 years. I don't go to the doctor unless it's urgent. My car needs new tires, but I'm pushing it another month. Every day is a trade-off. I had dreams once. Big ones. I wanted to go to grad school, maybe work internationally, build programs that make real change. I used to sketch out plans, research scholarships, write tentative personal statements in late-night bursts of inspiration. Now, I can't justify the cost. Even with loans, even with aid, it would mean stepping away from work, risking debt, and plunging even deeper into this hole. So I file the dream away in a folder marked, maybe someday, and try not to look at it too often. Dating is complicated, too. It's hard to build something meaningful when you're constantly worried about making ends meet. How do you talk about long-term plans when you're not even sure how you'll pay next month's bills? I've gone on dates where I quietly panicked over whether I could cover my share. Love isn't impossible when you're broke, but it sure feels out of reach. I try to cope. I journal. I read a lot, library books, mostly. I go on long walks because they're free and quiet the noise in my head. I talk to my therapist once a month through a low-cost clinic. She tells me I'm doing okay, considering that surviving in this economy with my values intact is its own kind of success. I believe her, most days. But there are nights when the weight gets to me. When I look at my bank balance, $72.13 before the next paycheck, and feel that familiar panic rise. When I realize I'm one flat tire away from a crisis. When I wonder what the hell I'm working so hard for, if I'm not even allowed to rest. People say millennials are entitled. That we don't want to work hard. But that's not true. I work hard. Everyone I know does. We're just stuck in a system that's built to keep us scrambling. A system where profits rise, wages don't, and rent increases are shrugged off like the weather. Still, I haven't lost hope. Not entirely. I hold on to small victories, paying off a credit card, finding a part-time freelance gig, getting through a month without needing to borrow money. I celebrate those wins. I cling to them. I'm learning to redefine success. Maybe it's not about a house or a title. Maybe it's about integrity. About showing up. About surviving in a world that's become hostile to the idea of security. Maybe success is just waking up each day and trying again. I'm not giving up. But I'm tired. And I think it's okay to say that out loud. I never thought I'd be here, stuck, breathing under a weight that feels like it's crushing me from the inside out. I'm 27, working full-time, trying to build something out of my life, but somehow, every month feels like a scramble, a desperate race against a tide that keeps rising, faster than I can swim. The cost of everything, rent, groceries, bills, grows, and my paycheck stays the same, barely stretching anymore. I'm caught in this endless cycle where the numbers don't add up, and the frustration sinks deeper with every late notice or declined card. Every morning, I wake up with this gnawing knot in my stomach. It's the same routine: shower, dress, pack my lunch if I'm lucky, and head to a job that pays the bills but doesn't fill the gaps. I remember when I graduated, full of hope and ideas. I imagined saving for a place of my own, maybe traveling, or even starting my own small business someday. But those dreams feel like distant stars, beautiful but out of reach. The reality hits hard when I open my bank app. One look at the balance and I'm reminded how tight things are. Sometimes I catch myself holding my breath, hoping nothing unexpected happens, no car repair, no medical bill, no surprise expense, because there's no safety net. I don't have family support to fall back on, and friends are in the same boat or worse. It's like we're all drifting in separate boats, just trying to keep afloat. I've had to get creative just to keep going. Coupons, second-hand stores, meal prepping cheap but filling food, it all helps a little. But the exhaustion is constant. Mentally and physically, I'm drained. I want to work overtime, but I'm too tired after 8 hours of standing or sitting, trying to make sense of the tasks piled on my desk. The stress keeps me awake at night, and when I do sleep, the dreams sometimes twist into fears. What if I lose this job? What if I get sick? What if I never get ahead? Sometimes I feel guilty. Guilty for spending a few dollars on a coffee or a small treat because it feels like a luxury I can't afford. Guilty for canceling plans with friends because the price of a night out is more than I can justify. Social media doesn't help either. It's full of people who seem to be living the lives I want, traveling, buying homes, starting families. I know it's not the whole picture, but it's hard not to compare. It's hard not to feel like I'm falling behind, like I'm missing out. I think about my parents' generation, how they managed to buy homes and raise families with less stress about money. They talk about those times with nostalgia, but for me, the world looks different, more expensive, more uncertain. Renting a tiny apartment that barely fits my needs, with rent rising every year, feels like throwing money into a hole. I want stability, but the system isn't built for people like me, hustling just to survive. Sometimes, when I'm at my lowest, I let myself cry. It feels taboo to admit, but it's the only way to let some of the pressure out. I don't want to seem weak or incapable. I just want to be real, to acknowledge how heavy this is. I try to remind myself that this isn't forever, that things can change, but the longer I stay stuck, the harder it is to believe. The hardest part is the dreams I've had to put on hold. I wanted to go back to school, get a degree that could open better doors, but tuition and living expenses are a mountain I can't climb right now. I thought about moving to a cheaper city, but moving costs and the fear of instability hold me back. I wanted to save for a trip abroad, to see the world beyond my daily grind, but now my savings are a few $100s at best, disappearing faster than I can build them. What keeps me going is small moments of hope. Like a genuine smile from a coworker, or a quiet evening where I feel peace despite the chaos. I remind myself of the goals I haven't given up on completely, even if they're miles away. Maybe one day, I'll look back and see this period as a tough chapter, but one that made me stronger. For now, I just keep putting one foot in front of the other. I plan meals carefully, avoid unnecessary expenses, and try to find joy in the small things. I've started journaling more, because putting my feelings on paper somehow makes them less overwhelming. I talk to a few close friends when I can, sharing the struggle and realizing I'm not alone. We're all navigating this tricky, expensive world together. It's not easy living in a system where money feels like a never-ending uphill battle. But I hold on to a fragile hope that someday, with enough grit and patience, I'll break free from this cycle. That the dreams I postponed won't disappear entirely, but will become plans I can actually reach. Until then, I'll keep fighting, quietly, steadily, and honestly, because giving up is a luxury I can't afford. If you asked me to sum this up, I'd say it feels like running on a treadmill that speeds up with every step. No matter how fast I move, I'm stuck in place, gasping for air but pushing forward anyway. And maybe that's the story of my life right now. Sometimes, I feel like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up every day, and no matter how fast I move, I'm stuck in the same place, or worse, sliding backward. It's this relentless financial pressure that's been creeping into every corner of my life, shaping how I think, how I feel, and even how I dream. I'm in my mid-20s, just starting out, but it feels like I've been in this fight for survival for years already. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is check my bank app. It's almost a reflex now, like breathing. Sometimes there's a little extra in my account, enough to cover the basics and maybe treat myself to a coffee. More often than not, it's a balance that makes my chest tighten. Bills, rent, groceries, phone, internet, those all get paid first. After that, I'm left staring at a number that's barely enough to get me through the week, let alone save for anything beyond the next emergency. The cost of living seems to be rising faster than my paycheck ever could. I've been at the same job for over 2 years, and while I'm grateful to have steady employment, my salary hasn't kept pace with inflation. Every trip to the grocery store feels like a negotiation with myself. Do I buy the healthier option that costs more? Or do I settle for something cheap and filling? And the answer is almost always the latter, which only adds to this gnawing feeling of failure, like I'm failing myself by not eating well. Rent is the worst. It's this giant monthly shadow hanging over everything else. Sometimes, I feel like my apartment is just a place I pay for, not a home I live in. I can't afford to move somewhere better or safer. I can't even really decorate or make it feel mine because I'm too worried about how much the next month will cost. I know I'm not alone in this, most of my friends are in the same boat. We talk about how unfair it is, how hard it feels to build a life when you're just scraping by. The pressure leaks into my relationships, too. I avoid social events because I can't afford the cost of going out, drinks, transportation, or even just buying a round of snacks. I'm always making excuses, even though I want to see people and feel connected. There's a shame in not being able to participate fully in the things others take for granted. I hate feeling like the boring friend who always says no. Some days, the stress gets so heavy that I have trouble sleeping. My mind spins with worry about what if the car breaks down, or what if I get sick and can't work. I've thought about getting a second job, but then I'm exhausted all the time and I still can't get ahead. It feels like the system is set up to keep people like me in this cycle, working hard but never catching up. I try to cope in small ways. Sometimes I journal or listen to music to escape for a little while. I've started cooking more at home, which helps save money and gives me a sense of control. But the underlying anxiety never quite goes away. It's like carrying a weight you can't put down, and even on good days, it's there in the back of your mind. There are dreams I've had to put on hold. I wanted to travel, see the world, learn new skills, maybe even go back to school. I imagined having a place of my own, a stable career that I'm passionate about. But those dreams feel so distant, like stars I can see but will never reach. Instead, I focus on survival, on paying the next bill, on hoping nothing unexpected happens. Yet, despite everything, I hold on to a flicker of hope. I remind myself that this moment isn't forever. That maybe, with time, I'll find a way out or at least a path that feels less suffocating. I want to believe that my worth isn't tied to my bank balance, even if it feels that way sometimes. I want to believe in a future where I'm not just existing but thriving. But for now, I keep moving forward, one day at a time, hoping the treadmill slows down or I find a way to jump off. Until then, I'm here, trying, surviving, and dreaming quietly beneath the weight of it all. It's been months since I last felt like I could breathe without a knot tightening in my chest the second I check my bank balance. I'm 27, and every single day feels like I'm walking through quicksand, the kind where you're trying desperately not to sink, but the ground beneath you keeps shifting, pulling you under. The thing is, I don't think it's just me. I think I'm a small, personal example of a much bigger, relentless machine that's been eating away at my generation's hopes, one expense at a time. I graduated college with a decent degree and a stack of loans, just like everyone else. I figured I'd get a job, work hard, and gradually build a life where I could afford the basics, a safe place to live, decent food, maybe even a weekend trip once in a while. But somewhere along the way, the math stopped adding up. The rent goes up every year, groceries cost more, gas prices jump unpredictably, and insurance premiums climb steadily. Meanwhile, my paycheck? Barely budges. I'm stuck in a cycle where my income is a slow drip, but my expenses are a fire hose turned on full blast. I live in a small apartment that's honestly too expensive for what it is, a cramped space with peeling paint and drafty windows. I spend most nights staring at the glow of my laptop screen, crunching numbers, and trying to figure out what I can cut this month without starving myself or turning the heat off completely. I've canceled streaming subscriptions, I shop for food with military-level precision, and I even consider public transportation over my car, even though it's a 2-hour commute. The emotional weight of these decisions isn't just about inconvenience, it's about constant anxiety, about feeling like I'm losing grip on basic dignity. Social life has shrunk to texts and rare, cautious meetups because even a simple night out with friends means figuring out if I can afford dinner or a taxi ride. Sometimes, I say yes, because human connection feels more necessary than ever. Other times, I say no, and the guilt follows me for days. I watch my friends move forward, buying homes, traveling, getting engaged, and I feel stuck, invisible in the rearview mirror of a life I thought I was supposed to be living. I often think about the dreams I've had to put on hold. I wanted to go back to school, maybe for a master's degree in social work, to give myself a better chance at a career I care about. But the tuition is a mountain I can't climb, and the debt feels like a pit I'm desperate to avoid. I wanted to save for a trip abroad, to see the world, to get lost for a while and find myself. Now, I can barely cover a car repair without spiraling into a mini financial crisis. This pressure has seeped into my emotional well-being. There's a dull, persistent sadness, sometimes overwhelming, that no amount of distraction can fix. Therapy helps, but even that's a luxury I can't afford often. I try to cope by writing, pouring out everything on the page, and by leaning on the few friends who really get it. I remind myself daily that my worth isn't defined by my bank account, but it's hard to hold on to that truth when every day feels like a battle between survival and surrender. The system feels rigged against people like me. It's as if expenses are on a relentless upward spiral, and wages are tethered to a slow crawl. I'm not asking for luxury, just enough stability to plan a future without fear. But that future seems more distant with every paycheck that disappears before I even get a chance to breathe. Still, there's a quiet hope inside me. Maybe it's stubbornness. Maybe it's the small victories, paying off a credit card, making it through the month without overdrafting, finding moments of joy in unexpected places. Maybe it's the belief that even in a system designed to hold us down, we can find ways to rise. I keep telling myself that I'm more than my financial situation, that one day, the tightrope won't feel so thin beneath my feet. Until then, I keep moving forward, one careful, calculated step at a time. It feels like I'm stuck in a slow, endless cycle. Every month, I get paid, and every month, I'm stretched thin. The numbers on my paycheck stay almost the same, but everything else, rent, groceries, utilities, just keeps climbing. It's exhausting, and honestly, sometimes it feels impossible to breathe. I'm 26, working a decent job in retail management. It pays more than my first job out of college, but it's not enough to feel like I'm moving forward. When I graduated, I had this idea that steady work would mean I could build a life, pay my bills, maybe save a little, travel someday, have a home of my own. But reality hit hard. The rent here in my city alone is over $200 a month. That's almost half of my paycheck before taxes. Then add in utilities, which lately have been skyrocketing thanks to inflation, phone bills, internet, transportation. I live close enough to work to bike sometimes, but I still need a car for grocery runs and emergencies. That's another expense that takes a big chunk of my monthly budget. Food used to be something I enjoyed, a way to connect with friends, try new things, relax after a long day. Now, it's a source of stress. I find myself calculating every grocery purchase, hunting for sales, buying only the cheapest options. Fresh produce? Mostly a luxury. Sometimes, I eat the same cheap pasta and canned veggies over and over because it's what fits my budget. I've become an expert at stretching meals, but it's lonely and exhausting. Eating out is a distant memory or a rare treat I have to mentally prepare for. Each month feels like a balancing act on a thin wire. One unexpected bill, a car repair, a medical copay, a broken appliance, and suddenly I'm scrambling. There's no emergency fund to soften the blow because I've never been able to save. When I do manage to set aside a few dollars, it feels like a triumph, but it's never enough to cover the unexpected. Sometimes, I borrow from friends or family, and that's a complicated thing to do when you want to be independent. The guilt and shame weigh heavily. The worst part is feeling trapped. Like no matter how hard I work, no matter how many extra hours I pick up, the gap between what I earn and what I owe keeps widening. I hear about inflation, cost of living, and wage stagnation on the news, but those are just statistics to me, they're my reality. This system, the economy, whatever you want to call it, feels rigged against people like me who are trying to make an honest living. Emotionally, it's been draining. There are days I wake up with a knot in my stomach just thinking about money. I've caught myself feeling hopeless, wondering if this is how the rest of my life will be, always just scraping by, never truly secure. Sometimes, the anxiety spills over into other parts of my life. Relationships get harder when I'm stressed and withdrawn. Social invitations feel like tests. Can I afford to say yes? Will I be judged for saying no? I cope the best I can. I've learned to live frugally, finding small joys that don't cost money, like evening walks, free community events, or calling friends instead of meeting in person. I try to keep a journal, reminding myself that my worth isn't tied to my bank balance, that I'm more than my financial struggles. Therapy helps too, even if it's just weekly sessions over Zoom. Having a space where I can be honest about my fears and frustrations without judgment makes a difference. But some dreams have had to be put on hold, maybe indefinitely. I once wanted to travel abroad, to see new cultures, to break out of this bubble of financial stress and routine. That's on hold. Buying a home? That feels like a fantasy. Even things like getting a pet, going back to school, or starting my own business seem impossible when I can barely cover rent and bills. I tell myself it's temporary, that one day I'll have the stability to chase those dreams. But one day is an elusive concept when every day feels like a struggle to survive. There's a part of me that wants to scream, to shout at the world for putting me here. But instead, I keep going, because giving up feels like losing a piece of myself. I remind myself that this isn't a personal failure, it's a systemic problem. I want to believe that change is possible, that wages will rise, that policies will shift, that I can find a way out of this financial trap. Until then, I'll keep walking this tightrope, one careful step at a time. I'm tired, yes. But I'm not broken. I'm holding on to hope, even when it feels small. Because that's all I have. This is my truth, raw, vulnerable, and real. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.